Fear has been a tool used to manipulate people for decades, and the anti-gun lobby uses it every day to gain support for gun control. Marketers will use fear to sell their products. Insurance companies profit off of what may happen. You might remember the commercials where the tree falls on the guy's car, but unlike his irresponsible neighbor, his car was covered, so he has no fear, as long as he pays his premiums. When fear is needed to influence the actions of a large group of people, catastrophic events are fabricated. Now, these are typically events that will hypothetically happen in the future because fear is often built on a lack of information. In other words, once the event happens, the fear is gone. Anticipation and an unknown outcome is always the best motivator. This is why the goalpost on issues like climate change is moved every 12 years or so. The feared outcome never actually happens, so a new narrative and motivator is constantly needed. Fortunately for the propagandists, there's always a new generation of malleable minds. But a good fear campaign needs a couple of other components. A lack of information is necessary to build fear. This is where leaving an undefined yet imaginably scary outcome comes in, while blocking certain data that would quell any fears. Injecting data that supports the proposed narrative is also necessary. Now, these strategies are used when it comes to creating an irrational fear of guns. First, a fear of personal danger must be established. It's also important for the anti-gun lobby to make people fear for their lives and believe that guns in the hands of private citizens put them in a perpetual state of danger. This is why terms like assault weapon and weapons of war and gun violence are used. Now, they're taught to believe that there is a great possibility of a life-threatening event happening to them at the hands of a gun owner, but not necessarily because of the gun owner, specifically because of the gun itself, because that is the thing they want to regulate. But if they support the latest gun law du jour, they'll be safe. Well, for now. Well, until the next piece of legislation is needed. And don't worry, you'll know because it will be introduced in response to the next school killing or terrorist rampage. Never mind arming teachers so they can defend the children or abolishing gun-free zones so people can defend themselves. The focus will always be on the firearm and more ways to restrict it. Next, a culprit is needed. This can be any number of things, but the gun grabbers have gravitated toward a few specific items, such as so-called assault weapons, ghost guns, so-called high-capacity magazines, and the idea that if we don't have more gun control, everyone will be recklessly and intentionally putting others in danger by running around with guns and shooting each other. Now, those who don't know any better are taught to believe that we constantly need more gun control to prevent the Wild West. People are taught to believe that more gun control laws are always needed, and fear is the emotional driver. Some are so fearful that they'll forfeit their rights for a perceived sense of safety. And the gun grabbers know this, which is why fear is always a component in gun control. Many will get on board and support the banning of things they don't even understand, as long as the narrative is strong enough. A perfect example would be the Las Vegas killing. Now, most people didn't even know what a bump stock was until the media decided it should be the focus of attention. And we never really learned about Stephen Paddock, the man who supposedly did the killing, but the media seemed obsessed with bump stocks. Not surprisingly, legislation to ban bump stocks came shortly after. But was the attack on bump stocks really for the purpose of banning the plastic attachment? Or would it serve as a path to banning all semi-automatic firearms? The public was encouraged to support the banning of these devices by being taught to believe that they were in grave danger as long as they existed, even though many people had no idea that they had ever existed in the first place. Manufactured fear was the motivator. Now, what about firearm information that's made public? Well, this is where it gets interesting. Much of the honest firearm-related data, statistics, and commentary is blocked or buried in a constant cycle of anti-gun search engine-favored media. At the same time, money is raised to fund manipulated studies designed to support gun control laws. In recent years, the anti-gun lobby has realized that studies and data typically do not support their narrative. So anti-gun research groups like the Gun Violence Archives, the Giffords Group, and The Biden-era Office of Gun Violence Prevention have been created to build a bank of anti-gun data and teams of people to push it. The gun grabbers understood that their fear campaigns were getting debunked by actual data from the FBI, DOJ, university studies, and several independent researchers. They needed data of their own to counter the pro-gun argument and defend their position. Plus, their emotional arguments started to look silly when pro-gun advocates presented real facts. Recognizing anti-gun propaganda may seem confusing at times, but it most often contains a fear component. Thanks for watching Bullet Points. I'm Dan Wos for Gun Owners Foundation. You can find more Second Amendment content and updates at gunowners.com.